Hello, I'm going to be talking about how I will engage in reconciliation as a science teacher. I think this topic as a whole has been really brought to light for me throughout this entire program. And I've truly learned the importance of reconciliation within the classroom over the last few years. I want to first start off by giving a quote that I got from an article called Reconciliation in the Classroom. And it goes as Canada is venturing down a path towards reconciliation, in which educators play an integral role to restore mutual respect between individuals from different cultural backgrounds. So, within this article, they're talking about restoring this mutual respect. And this mutual respect has been destroyed from the history that we've made. And Canada is ultimately trying to make amends. And I don't think that will be obviously made overnight, but they're making efforts to create this environment where students are able to learn about this different culture. The article continues to then talk about how the education system was used as a primary weapon by European settlers in attempts to destroy their indigenous culture. But now we are using our education to bring to light the importance of their culture and the depth of it. And I think that if a teacher does it right, that it can really encourage students to continue their growth within this community. Um, as I've done more research, I've learned that while teaching, it is so important to work with Indigenous peoples, families, communities, rather than working with the people that aren't truly sure how to teach it. Um, as mentioned before, I have been given a very westernized education, which didn't really teach much about the Indigenous culture or anything in that matter. So when it comes to teaching facts and even teaching anything along those lines, I would say my knowledge is very limited. So reaching out to the community, reaching out to the family, reaching out to the people that have learned this way their entire life would have much better explanation than I ever would. Um, so it's important to allow these Indigenous people to speak for themselves, and we do that by inviting local people and knowledge keepers into the classroom when we can. With COVID, that's been a problem, being able to have people engage in our classrooms, but they can still do it virtually. It's also been brought to light that it is very important to not start with the cultural genocide in the residential schools that Canada did. Um, I never really thought about it this way, but Indigenous people aren't victims first, and a lot of time people really focus on the negatives rather than the proud, resilient people they are and how their culture is and all the positive things really about them. Um, they have so much to teach us, and it's really important not just to focus on the negative. Um, and I guess really one thing that is also very important is investing time to prepare yourself. As I mentioned before, I'm not that knowledgeable about certain topics, and that's okay. Um, as a lifelong learner, I will continue to learn as I grow, but preparing myself to teach these lessons and to do cross curricular connections with Indigenous knowledge, whether that be in science or other topics, it's important to get the best understanding possible through many different resources. Um, the Indigenous people have time tested knowledge systems, education, different government, how they raise their children. It can be much different than how I was raised, and having that different perspective can just create such a rich, diverse culture within the classroom. But in order to do that, it is important to create this culture where acceptance is something that all students need. And it is important that we are able to talk about this and ask questions whether or not they're right, or like if their answers are right or wrong. Be creating a safe environment for people to ask these questions to better educate themselves. And I think that's what we can do in my classroom.